Hey guys, Green here with another tutorial video. This time about the Zerg versus Protoss matchup from the Zerg perspective. This is going to be a video about Protoss timings. A lot of Zergs struggle with this. They always ask me questions. The friends of mine who play, they say, and they vary from masters to gold and stuff like that. They'll say, when do I stop producing drones? And when do I, do this? What do I build against that? Those are good questions, but the right perfect question to ask is actually at what time does that protoss attack happen? Because if you know what time the protoss attack happens, then you can properly produce units, then you can properly stop droning. This video is going to go over all of the common protoss timings, how to defend against all of them, and in fact, you're going to be able to defend against all of them in one build. It is one build that is going to possibly defend against all of them. Now, as you get better in the matchup, and you get better at identifying the signs of the builds, you will start to eke out more drones. You will start to get further ahead and crush builds better. But if you're struggling with the matchup or you're new to the game, this is going to be a perfect middle ground build. It is perfectly tailored to hit every single timing that you see on the left without dying to them while maintaining economy and also having army at an early time. You're probably saying, that's kind of odd. How is that even possible that you're doing everything? Well, you're not really doing everything, but you're doing just enough. And that's very important. When playing a Zerg, it's often good to understand exactly what you can get away with so that you have the proper amount of units. Overproducing leads to bad economy, and underproducing leads to losing the game. This is going to be the perfect hybrid of both. So, let's go over some habits and rules of the matchup. First things first, 3 overlords at all times must be sent to the Protoss base at the beginning of the game, no matter what. The first overlord goes to the front. The second overlord goes to the back. They will be sacrificed at a later time. The third overlord goes to the back because that will turn into an overseer, again, at a later time. The second thing is consistency. The same way we're going to consistently send overlords out is the same way we're going to start with a consistent build. You don't want to go hatch first because that can get cannoned, hatch blocked, lots of stuff that can vary your build. You want to have the same build at all times. By going pool first, you get that consistency and you can modify your build and fix your problems and determine if an early game issue was the cause for your weak late game. So always go pool first. And now this brings me to my other rule of the matchup, which is ling production for scouting. How many times have you died to a proxy tech? I'm sure a lot of people have died to a lot of proxy techs, from oracles to DTs, and it's very frustrating. And if you'd only seen it, you would have held it. But this is the way you need to get good at these matchups. You have to build habits. You have to do things over and over again so that they become intuitive, they become instinctual. You must know that at the start of every match, overlords go here, and lings scout nooks and crannies. This is the rule. If they go forge first, build 2 lings. If they go gateway first, build 4 lings. The reason for this is, if they go forge first, your overlord can sit out in front and it won't die. But if they go gateway first, a stalker or a sentry can easily kill the frontal overlord. Now, this is a problem. If a probe were to sneak out because you had no vision to the front, then they can proxy attack or make a forward pylon. This is going to make whatever they're doing more powerful. By putting an overlord or 2 lings in front of here, we're prohibiting that from happening. And this is your first goal in the matchup. Do not let them proxy a pylon. If they chase you away, simply run off to the side and come back. Do not let up. Do not lose your lings out in front. If you lose lings, make more. Now, if they're going forge first and your overlord can sit here, that's fine. You're still going to send 2 lings around the map and scout every single possibility. Do not leave any place unturned. Scout here, scout there, scout in your own third, scout at your fourth. These are very common places, okay? So that's going to be the scouting pattern. Always do it every single time. Remember about the 3 overlords. You must have 3 overlords out. I think in this game I don't put the 3rd overlord out, but that's fine. You must get in the habit of doing so. Now, the second thing that we're going to be doing is taking gas. Now, by taking gas, we're weakening our economy. But if we take this gas early, we maintain safety. It's very important to be safe, especially versus gateway first. So, always take your gas, and you'll see later how this is perfectly tailored to minimize the effect this has on your economy, to minimize the hurt. So let's fast forward a little bit. The build will be at the bottom if you're worried about the build and the timings. This is not about the build and timings for your build. This is about the build and the timings for their build. So, don't worry too much about that. Now, this is the first deviation from what you'd normally see. As soon as I have enough minerals to afford ling speed, I'm taking 2 drones off. This is important because 1 drone will give the perfect amount of gas mined to hold off the very first timing you'll see on the left. So, I'm sure you've noticed by now there's a bunch of timings on the left side of the screen. This video is going to systematically go through this build and have it counter all of those builds in order. And some of the builds are going to be countered all at once. So, by doing this with the gas, we maintain a decent economy of crystals, but also have gas to meet our first timing requirement, which is a zealot warp in. So, we're taking 2 off, we're producing ling speed, as you see up here, and let's see down here what we're going to be doing. As normal, we're producing drones, we're doing whatever we can, he's popping in and out, scouting and whatnot. Now, this is the first thing we're going to be producing besides, lings, is the roaches. Now, you look to the left and you see it says zealot warp-ins at 7 minutes. This is an attack designed to kill your third base. It comes with about 4 zealots at 7 minutes and sometimes comes with 8 zealots at 8 minutes. So you want to say to yourself, okay, well, how can I be ready but not overproduce? Now, the trick to dealing with zealots is having roaches early enough to kill the first pack, but not late enough to where they get enough damage on your hatchery to where they can just zerg it and sacrifice their zealots. The way to go about that is make sure you have roaches out at 7 minutes so that the initial 4 zealots can get killed really quickly. By killing these zealots quickly early, you ensure that they don't stack up to a deadly count of 8 or 12 zealots. So that's going to be our first timing. This is our goal. This is how this video is going to go. We're going to meet timing goals little by little. So let's fast forward a little bit more. You'll notice the gas is stacking up. Our goal is to have about 3 roaches. Now, let's talk some math for a second here. Our goal is 7 minutes. Roach Warren takes a minute to build. Roaches take about 30 seconds. So that means our Roach Warren needed to go down at 5:30, which it did. And that means to meet our requirement for having roaches out at 7 minutes, that we need to start producing roaches by 6:30, which we've done here. Our ling speed is also about to finish about 30 seconds from now, meaning ling speed, 3 roaches, and roach warren are all completed by 7 minutes, meaning we've accomplished our first task, holding the first harassment potential. Now, we can consider this a hold. The second timing that we have to account for is an 8 gate. Now, how do I know if it's an 8 gate? Well, if they have chrono boosted warp gates in the front, there's a high likelihood that they're going 8 gate. The job of the lings and an overlord in the front, potentially, is to see if they're chronoing their cyber. Now, if they went forge first, you can see this by darting in and out. But if they went gateway first, you can't see this. So this is where the overlords come in. Your next job is to sacrifice your overlords. You must do this at least by 6:30 to 7 minutes. This is the appropriate time. 6:30 being optimal, 7 being lazy. I apparently got lazy here. Do not get lazy. Now, this is the job of this overlord, to scout this area, including these gas. The goal of your secondary overlord is to scout what tech they're going. Try to hit areas like up here and behind here as best as you can. So, we've scouted 2 gas, but let's say hypothetically that he did not take these gas. If a protoss does not have their gas here by 7 minutes, then there's a high likelihood, an almost certainty, that they are doing a really fast 8 gate all-in. Well, not a really fast, just a fast gateway all-in, probably around 8 gates or taking a third. Since you have lings out in the front, you know they're not taking a third. This is probably a gateway all-in. Now, this is how you determine what a protoss is doing. This is how you understand the matchup. You say to yourself, okay, well, I didn't see gas here. It's pretty late. It's probably a gateway all-in. That means even if this overlord didn't scout anything, you can assume safely that it is a gateway all-in. Non-stop produce roaches and lings, and you will hold it off. Congratulations, you've now held off 2 builds. But in this scenario, he did take gas. So there requires other reactions. How do you know what to do? Well, let's say he's going robo, twilight, or a stargate. All those builds are very similar in one thing. The immortal all-in with sentries, the void ray, and the blink stalker all-in are both held off by roaches, lings, and hydras, but preferably hydras and lings. So, if those are the next timing attacks we have to worry about, and they happen at 10 minutes, then that means our next goal, our next defense, is to be ready by 10 minutes with adequate army to fight off such an all-in. So, we've now responded by taking our gas in response to his gas. We've now responded by droning up because we know that there's going to be a later timing attack. And those overlords are going to die, so we responded by building lots of overlords. The follow-up is also to build a lair. I think I built a later lair than you normally would, but that's fine. It's okay to get a little bit of a later lair. The way you think of your army composition is very simple. If you get a later lair and they're going Stargate, build queens and spores. You can even build spores out in front here. If they went a robo or a twilight, then build lots of lings, roaches, and hydras. Now, again, I said our goal is to reach 10-minute defense. And this is very important because we don't want to drone too much because you might die, but we don't want to under-drone because you don't want to have not enough economy to build army. So at around 8 minutes and 30 seconds is when we need to start building our army. That'll give us a nice minute and 30-second cushion to reach our designated goal of 10 minutes defeating this army. Now, what is your first production of units? Some people might think it doesn't really matter, but it matters a lot. Your first initial units must be lings. Now, the reasoning for these lings is very simple. If they are pushing out with a forward pylon and you kill the probe or the pylon with your lings, you can both kill the pylon and run away and slow down their push. Also, if you have fast lings out on the map, they must put something back here to stop you, whether that's a pylon or a zealot and some sentries. But either way, you're now hindering their build a little bit. You're making them not feel so easy about pushing out. The final goal of the lings is to determine if they're actually pushing out or they're taking a third. Now, if they're taking a third, maybe you drone up a little teensy bit more than if they weren't, because they're investing in a base. It's okay if you invest in your economy too, but you don't want to hurt yourself too much because a lot of times they can still attack you even while taking that third. So what your goal is now is with that third overlord I mentioned is make sure you have have eyes on this third base. Make sure you with your lings you're seeing exactly what they're doing. Are they moving out and attacking you? Are they staying in their base? What are they doing? Once you've determined what you think they're doing, it's time to produce a proper army. It's time to catch up on army supplies. So, with the remaining money, keep producing roaches and lings. Now, it's going to hit at 10 minutes, and like I said, depending on what they went, whether they went Stargate or Robo or Twilight, depends on what you're producing. If they produce a Twilight Council Blink Stalker all-in, you want more lings and eventually hydras. If they go Immortal Sentry all-in, you want lings and hydras, but in the meantime, you can use roaches. And if they went Stargate, you want to produce some spores and roaches, hydras, and lings. Now, once you get your lair completed, it's important to set up infrastructure for your next tech upgrade. If they were to go Colossus, you would want Vipers, so you definitely want Infestation Pit. But if they were to keep applying aggression, then you would want Hydras, so you want your Hydra Den. Keep this in mind because you must know what they're doing. Keep up scouting. This is where your third overlord finally comes into play. Other than scouting for the third, your overlord's job is to morph into an overseer and confirm which tech they're going. Let's say that they're going Twilight Council. They might then go DTs. Or they might go from Robo into Colossi. They might go Twilight Council into Robo and do Blink Immortal. They might do lots of things. All of those things will delay their tech, but all of those things can be confirmed by your final scout of an overseer. Now, if they are adding an additional tech, like a Colossus tech or Storm, then that's delaying their power, and feel free to drone up. If they are not, then keep producing army. So again, our immediate goal is to defend against the all-in. Keep building an army at this point until you've acquired a proper defense. Whatever you feel is proper, whatever you see they have, you feel you need to defend. Maybe you overproduce. Maybe your goal is to build a huge army and deny them their third. It's up to you, but just make sure you can properly defend. A lot of times it's good to initially have a big army and then not need it, then not have a big enough army and end up needing it. You've got 28 lings coming out, you've got 12 of the lings on the map, you're pretty well defended against an Immortal Sentry all-in. So now we've chopped off more builds from our list. We just beat the Immortal Sentry all in. We have enough lings to beat Blink Stalker all in. We've got enough stuff to beat Void Ray all in because we build spores and extra queens. We're perfectly safe. But now they're teching to Colossus. So how do we beat Colossus? The ideal composition for fighting Colossus is going to be Roach, Hydra, Ling, Viper. Those units are what you want. So you take the fact that they're going Colossus and you say, okay, they can't attack me anytime soon. As you've seen the timing, a Colossus timing hits at about 14 minutes. So make a round of drones and start taking your tech. Start taking your hive. Like I said, your goal is to get Vipers. So you need to start doing that. You'll also notice that I'm not getting upgrades just yet. I believe that it's better to favor tech than it is to favor upgrades just yet. Zergs will always have problems with Colossus, Immortals, Archons, and the such. It's much better to be safe from those techs and counter those techs, in my opinion, very hard than it is to get upgrades. I used to get 2-2 very quickly. By the time they pushed out, I'd have 2-2, but guess what? 2-2 means nothing if you don't have Vipers in time. And oftentimes getting 2-2 delays your Viper tech. So keep in mind that having a substantial tech army is oftentimes better at countering their tech army than getting upgrades. So let's look and coincide what we have versus what they're doing. So 14 minutes is the said timing for Colossus, which will usually consist of 3 Colossus with Colossus range. And you're currently at 160 supply at 12 minutes, and you're currently getting Vipers. This means that you have now just countered Colossus, you have a substantial army, you've got 3 bases mining to 2, and you're about to be maxed. You'll probably max at around 13 minutes. You'll also have countered their tech. Once you've properly countered their tech, it's time to add upgrades. It's okay to be a little late in the upgrades because guess what? If they attack you with Colossus, you're going to yank them in and they're going to die. Now this is an important thing to note. You built lings earlier in the matchup, which would normally be worthless against Colossi. But if you're able to pull Colossi in, lings become good again. So they go from being bad to being great all in the blink of an eye. And by yanking the Colossus in, you ensure that the Colossus die very quickly, and these roaches and hydras will do perfectly fine with killing the Colossus. It's okay to add more lings. Now that you have Vipers, lings become useful, and you could spend your gas on Vipers and your money on lings. So now we look at our timings list and we say, okay, we've countered the 7-minute Zealot Rush. We've countered the 8-minute all-in Gateway Rush. We've countered Sentry Immortal, Void Ray, and Blink Stalker. And now we've finally countered Colossus. Our armies are maxed. What's the final thing that a protoss can do? He can take a third. He can play defensively. Now, the counter to that is to take your fourth. So that's what we do. We take our fourth to counter his third. And now you have a choice. Do you want to stack up money and tech to Broodlords or tech to Ultras? Do you want to attack him and trade armies? It's up to you. It's up to your style. It's up to the type of map. If the map has a lot of chokes, unlike this map, maybe attacking isn't that great of an idea. But if it doesn't have a lot of chokes and it's a map like this, then an army like Vipers, Hydras, and Lings could do very well at trading with the Protoss. So, again, we've countered everything. We've gone through. We've been safe the entire time. And now we're just getting our upgrades up and beating down this no-skilled Protoss with the highly skilled Zerg race that you are. I hope everyone learned from this. If you have any questions, post them down on the bottom. PM, whatever. I'm always willing to help, and I just love teaching StarCraft. So, thanks again.